Hey everyone, it's your friendly neighborhood radio host, Sanoani. Hello, today is April 26th today. Hope you're having an awesome weekend. You know, I was digging through the archives, like totally exploring, and found this super interesting trending paper I wanted to chat about today. It's all about making like virtual reality easier to use. Okay, so the title is kinda sensitive. But stick with me, it's called Evaluating the Usability of Microgestures for Text Editing Tasks in Virtual Reality. View in the curl, if you want to check it out later, is arXiv.org/abs/2504.4118 v1. Yeah, I know it's long. So, imagine you're in VR, maybe trying to do some homework or write notes, right? Using those handheld controllers or big hand-waving gestures can get super tiring. There's even a funny name for it, the gorilla arm effect. Basically, holding your arms up for ages makes them feel really heavy and sore. So annoying. Plus, trying to type or edit text precisely can be tricky. And waving your arms around isn't exactly sudden. If you're on a bus or something, that's the problem this paper is trying to fix. They came up with this cool system called microGEXT. Micro, like really small, and GEXT for gesture text editing, I think. Uses microgestures, tiny, subtle movements of your fingers and hand. Think less like waving and more like tiny finger wiggles or taps. Super discreet. And the best part? Uses the cameras already built into her headsets, like the Meta Quest Pro they used. So no need for extra sensors or wires. It just watches your hand and understands these small movements. How does it work for editing text? Well, they design specific little gestures for common actions. Making the scissor shape with your index and middle finger means cut. Snip. Making a ring with your thumb and index finger means copy. And swiping your thumb along your index finger lets you move the cursor or select text. There are others too, like a fist for delete and an open palm for undo. It sounds kinda neat, right? So, the researchers did a bunch of tests with people. In one study, they found that using microGEXT was actually faster for some things, like cutting, deleting, and selecting all the text compared to a normal menu system. And overall, people found it more enjoyable, like the data quality was way higher. That means it felt nicer to use, even if they sometimes made a mistake and had to redo a gesture. Another study looks specifically at selecting text. microGEXT was pretty good for picking out short bits of text, like a few words. But, it was a bit slower when selecting paragraphs compared to the regular method. That's probably because you have to switch modes using wrist rotation first for bigger selections. Even so, people felt it took less mental effort and way less physical effort. They also said it was less frustrating, which is a huge plus. And guess what? People actually preferred microGEXT overall. They felt less tired after using it too. That's awesome. Okay, so what could we actually use this kind of tech? Well, obviously for working in work editing documents or emails without getting tired arms. Imagine sitting on a plane and just subtly editing stuff with tiny finger movements. But think bigger. Like for interactive learning, students could highlight text or copy notes in the lessons easily. Or for artists and designers using VR, they could use microgestures for quick tool changes or undoing stuff without putting down their virtual brushes. And maybe even in training simulations, like for surgeons, they could interact with menus using small gestures while focusing on the main task. It feels like they could make VR interactions feel much more natural and less clinky, compared to other stuff like, using big controllers can feel bulky. And those really big motion gestures are just exhausting and kinda awkward in public. Gestures are way more subtle and less tiring. That's right. Of course, it's not perfect yet. The studies showed people needed time to learn and remember the gestures. And like I said, selecting really long pieces of text was a bit slower. The researchers also mentioned that adding loads more gestures might get confusing. So maybe a mix of microgestures and other things like voice commands could be cool in the future. But overall, microGEXT seems like a really promising step towards making Ver less tiring. And more comfortable for everyday stuff like text editing. It shows how these tiny movements could make a big difference. Super cool stuff happening in the tech world, right? Anyway, that's all the time I have for this segment. This was Annie signing off. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.